Hola, ¿qué tal? Soy Bruce Fumi. Today I'm going to tell you about a Scottish hero of the Spanish Civil War, and she was a woman. Now, if you're interested in the people, places and events in Scottish history, then hit the subscribe button at the bottom right hand side of the screen at any time during this video. For books, further information, ways to support the channel, buy me a coffee, join the National Trust, all that kind of stuff is in the description below. In the meantime, let me tell you a story. Now, this is a memorial to those who served in the Spanish Civil War in my hometown of Perth. Now, it's not for Spanish who served in the war, it's dedicated to the people of Perth who left here to join the fight. This memorial was conceived, organised and fundraised by a mate of mine, Paul Philippou. Now, I know you're probably wondering, what's a Greek Cypriot Londoner doing setting up a memorial to Scottish anti-fascists in Perth? He's just that kind of guy. He's actually written a book called The Spanish Thermopylae about Cypriot volunteers during the Spanish Civil War. And I'll leave a link to this book along with one that he published about George Orwell in Spain and one about today's hero, all in the description below. Now, in case you don't know, the Spanish Civil War broke out in 1936. You could say that the Spanish Civil War was a conflict brought about when a democratically elected coalition of centrist, socialist, anarchist and communist parties were overthrown in a right-wing military coup that involved a bloody civil war with atrocities on both sides, where the fascist insurgents of General Franco were supported by his allies Hitler, Mussolini, as well as the church and the landed classes. And the elected Republican side was supported by Russia and Mexico, while the key Western powers of the US, UK and France sat in their hands in a policy of non-alignment that was really capitulation to the fascists. But that would be a gross oversimplification. So let's just say there was a civil war, it was in Spain, it was in the 30s, and the British government didn't cover itself in glory. But some of its people did. 40,000 volunteers from around the world went to Spain to join and fight for the International Brigade. And with 550 volunteers, the nation who provided the biggest contingent was Scotland. The volunteers formed the International Brigade. I wonder how international this is. Let me know in the comment section below what country you're from. The UK government banned its citizens supplying or travelling to Spain to support a democratically elected government fight against fascist terrorist insurgents. Despite this, Britons left home, travelled through France to Spain in order to fight, risk and lose their lives in the International Brigade. Would you? Would I? 12 people from my hometown did. And so did a young woman from Motherwell. Her name was Ethel MacDonald. She was born in 1909 in roughly the same place and time as the famous Manchester United manager Sir Matt Busby. She left home at 16, around the time that another Scotsman, John Logie Baird, first demonstrated the television. Now, I've got a video on John Logie Baird, right? It was really interesting. I'll leave a link at the end. This young lass had joined and become active in the Independent Labour Party. Oh! I've also got a video on the incredible rise of Ramsay MacDonald to be the first Labour Prime Minister. It's on my channel, you'll find it easily. Anyway, Ethel was a hardy lass for Lanarkshire. Keir Hardie. Another Lanarkshire boy who was one of the founders and the first MPs of what would go on to become the Labour Party. I haven't made a video about him yet. The point is that there was a time where ordinary working class Scottish people craved knowledge, learned to lean to the left and made a huge impact. So Ethel got involved as an administrator and campaigner with an anarchist organisation. She became fluent in French and German, as you do, and having left school with no qualifications, developed highly effective writing skills. And by that I mean eloquence and rhetoric of language. The mechanics of writing were a given, okay? Anyway, in 1936, as the Spanish Civil War was starting, the office in Glasgow received a call from Spain for somebody to go and report on what was happening. The stance of the US and the UK government meant that the embattled Spanish Democrats wanted English-speaking folk to know what was going on. Despite her and the organisation being penniless, Ethel travelled to Barcelona to show support to the Scottish anarchist movement for their Spanish compatriots. And from her base in Barcelona, Ethel would write and send back reports for anarchist publications and for wider distribution. But remember John Logie Baird? Communications were changing. And when an English language radio station was set up to transmit to the world, she became the voice of Free Spain. As battle raged throughout Spain, she sent messages to call for support to the English-speaking world on radio waves which pierced the barriers erected by supposedly democracy-supporting Western nations who talked non-alignment but practiced complicity with fascist regimes. As Hitler Stukas dive-bombed British members of the International Brigade at Hamara, the British government choked off supplies to the democratically elected government for whom its citizens fought. And the voice of a wee lass fae Motherwell chirped like Jiminy Cricket to international recognition. As Franco's brutal advance engulfed Madrid, the Spanish government retreated to Barcelona. At the same time, questions surrounding the death of a key anarchist commander meant that the coalition started to splinter. As the communists gained more control over government, they turned on the anarchists. On May 3rd, 1937, they stormed the telephone exchange which the anarchists had held. Sandbags had been placed to defend against fascists. Now, new defences were needed for barricades between previous allies closer to home. Now, during 3 days of fighting, Ethel played a support role, foraging for food and filling ammunition cartridges. As the fascists tightened their grip over Spain, the communist-backed government forces squeezed Catalonia. A barrage of bullets blazed back and forth across the Barcelona boulevards. I was left with a lot of bees in a Scrabble game once. When the telephone exchange fell, the arrest of the anarchists began in earnest, and Ethel's voice was no longer heard. Did radio silence mean death? No, it meant a change of role. She had been on the side of the government fighting against fascists. Now, as an anarchist, she was an enemy of the crumbling Spanish state. Many were leaving Catalonia and crossing the border to France, but that was an escape route blocked to Ethel. There were now government guards at the border. To attempt a crossing without a visa would mean capture. To attempt to get a visa would mean capture. For now, she worked underground, getting messages to and from prison, finding sailors of international boats at the docks who might smuggle out other activists in danger, always in danger herself. With a Damoclean sword above her, pursuers behind, and threats on every side, she navigated the labyrinth, freeing others before plunging herself back into the struggle. She became known internationally as the Scottish Scarlet Pimpernel, constantly under threat of arrest. How long could it last? At 1 a.m. one morning, she found out. As government assault guards burst into her room and whisked her away with brutal treatment, but without charge. Here is a memorial to James Moyer. Now, no body lies here because he was one of the soldiers of freedom who left Perth never to return. Along with a third of the Scots who had left these shores, he died for democracy, for freedom, and to end fascism. Still, on April 1st, 1939, General Franco's fascists finally claimed victory over Spain, although the British government had recognised the Franco regime a month earlier and hailed Hitler's promise of peace in our time 6 months before that. I suppose the British establishment thought that fascism was less of a threat than a democratically elected People's Republic. And so, the appeasement of Hitler, and 40 years of Franco's fascism in Spain that saw more murders and political killings than the war itself. I was at school before Spain finally returned to democracy after their brief flirtation in the 1930s. Ethel MacDonald. British Labour politician Fenner Brockway managed to get Ethel released. Later, as General Franco closed in Barcelona and prepared to bombard the town, the British government arranged for its citizens in Spain to be evacuated via a neutral zone at the harbour. Whilst Ethel was questioned, she was allowed to leave. She continued to campaign, gave speeches, wrote articles and published for the anarchist cause. She later contracted multiple sclerosis and died in Glasgow in 1960. Franco outlived Ethel. And you know, as I look around the world today, I worry that democracy isn't guaranteed. It's even more fragile than a lassie from Motherwell. That fascism wasn't defeated. It only took a standing count. And there's another round to fight. Wonder how many Ethel McDonalds there are out there. Leave a thumbs up below to say that you care, not for me, but for Ethel. In the meantime, here's a video about John Logie Baird that I mentioned earlier. I mean, Dochas going to be Lama alive. Cheerio and Rasta.